Greetings, Terrarians, Khaios here. Today I'm going to be continuing my series where I build themed houses for each of the friendly NPCs in Terraria. In the past, I did 3 NPCs at a time, but it resulted in not much of the building process being shown for any of the videos because it takes quite a bit of time to build for all of the NPCs. And a lot of you had asked to see more of that process, so from here on out, I will be doing only 1 NPC at a time. I've already covered houses for the Guide, Merchant, Nurse, Demolitionist, Dye Trader, and Dryad. If you want to see either of the videos for those NPC houses, I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description below. Today, I'll be building a house for one of the new town NPCs, the Golfer. But before I get started on that, a quick word from this video's sponsor, me. I still have t-shirts, mugs, and stickers on sale. They're only available for a limited time. In fact, there are only 5 days left to pick up your merch. I'm not sure if I'm going to be selling anything again in the future, but if I do, I plan to use brand new designs. That means once these are gone, they're gone for good. So be sure to pick up your Khaios channel merch today. There are several links below this video if you want to check that out. So for the Golfer, the plan is to make a golf shop with a putt-putt hole outside of it. In my golf map, I built a house for the Golfer, so today I'm going to be building something similar to it with some design changes so that I can actually talk about how to build this house. So I'm just switching out trees until I'm happy with the design. I'm probably going to go with that one, or maybe this one. But I have some trees planted now, I have some foliage in place, and I have some grass under this false foundation that I've started here. Now, if you don't want to wait for grass to grow, which you can speed up in journey mode by increasing the time, you could also use tall grass and grass seeds to basically just, oop, I didn't mean to paint that. I'll turn my paint spray off. But you can basically just place the tall grass here. It won't be the super tall version like you see right here. It's going to be the smaller version. But it will place grass down, and once you unpause time, those will eventually grow into the tall versions. So for the false foundation, I'm just going to start off with some blue slab wall here with white paint and just place that under here. This is something that I do for most of my builds in terms of the false foundation. I just think that it adds a nice layer of depth to the build. It allows you to have grass under here. It makes it look like the building's a little bit further in the back, or maybe this grass is further into the front, and I just like the way that it looks. I'm also going to grab some rich mahogany wall with brown paint and just place a row of it in there like that. And I could probably get rid of those seeds. I can get rid of those walls as well, and I don't need those globes either. And then with some shadewood fence and brown paint, I'm going to place these evenly spaced just because it'll look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to place one right here. And the reason why I'm going to be using fence instead of, say, shadewood wall is because the fence lets some light in, which allows you to see into the false foundation like this. And it makes it look better, in my opinion, than if you were to just use a wall. So up next, I'm going to start working on the actual house in terms of the exterior walls rather than the interior walls. In the past, I would design this type of house with some white painted stucco for the outside edges, and I think that does still look good. However, 1.4 adds these new crimstone bricks, which are a far better fit in my opinion, so I use those with white paint for the sides of the house. The rooftops are going to be thatched, meaning that a roof is made out of straw. Instead of actually using hay here, I'm going with brown painted leaf block for a far less symmetrical pattern than the hay block offers. I used the normal leaf wand instead of mahogany leaf because those leaves turn out a little bit brighter than these, and I don't think it's as good of a fit. I want to use wooden beams to support the roof as well. In my opinion, large bamboo, dynasty wood, or living wood wall all work well here. In Terraria, I used dynasty wood because bamboo hadn't been added to the beta yet when that house was made, but this time I'm going to blend large bamboo and living wood. I used living wood for any of the diagonal supports because the texture of large bamboo doesn't look as good in a diagonal as the smooth texture of living wood does. I also use it whenever the supports touch leaves. Large bamboo does not blend together with leaves, so they don't look like they're ever connected at all. but living wood blends together both with the large bamboo and the leaf blocks, so by placing some living wood whenever the supports touch that leafy roof, I can make it better appear as if the beams are being fed directly into the leaves. With the exterior walls out of the way, now it's time to move on to the interior, and I want to start off with these leafy segments in the roof. Normally, in the past, I would use a living leaf wall with brown paint and throw that in there. It's a decent appearance. It's not a perfect match, but it's not bad either. And obviously it's leaf, so it works. However, 1.4 adds the Echo Mist crafting, where you can go to a graveyard and craft a bunch of the previously unobtainable walls. And some of those look really fantastic as leaf walls, surprisingly. For instance, if I grab this Corrupt Growth wall, and I brown paint that and throw that into this area here, it almost takes on the exact same texture that the leaf block does, which is extra surprising, and it's a perfect fit in my opinion. So I'm going to be using that for this. Other walls work as well. Some of the crimson ones do, some of the other corruption ones do. You can experiment around with it and see what matches the best for you, but I'm really happy with this Corrupt Growth. So that covers the leaf segments of this, and for the interior, I'm going to lay a row of gray painted green tiled wall at the very base of the building, just because I like to add a little bit of variety to my walls. Now this is going to primarily be using some white painted crimstone brick, but to throw a little of variety and texture into it, I've got this gray down here, and then on top of that I'm going to grab some brown paint and rich mahogany wall and make a row of that right across here as well. And then the rest of this for now can be filled in with this crimtane wall. Now at this point I'm going to place down some brown painted shadewood and rich mahogany fence right here where the door is going to be placed. And the reason I'm going with a fence in this segment is because the doors will let a small amount of light in through them anyway, so using a fence here that's a little bit brighter will be a good fit. It's not going to bring in light that you wouldn't expect to come in, but if I were to use a wall of any kind, you'll see that it sticks out further than the building itself, and personally I try to avoid that. I'm not a huge fan of the way that particularly looks, so I try to either make it flush or have the top of the building overhang from where the door is going to be. And next, for the interior, I'm going to be placing some support beams around the place. So normally I might do something like shadewood wall, but since we have this large bamboo wall, I'm going to try using this instead, and it really takes on a great texture. I only wish that there was a, I guess, horizontal laying large bamboo wall where if I went like this, it would make this texture in that direction. That's the one thing that I feel is lacking here, but I absolutely love the way that this large bamboo works as a support beam. So let me go ahead and just fill these in. So as you can see here, I'm going to be placing additional supports into the background wall over here, but it's pretty dark up there. If you don't like that, I'd recommend grabbing some shadewood or rich mahogany fence and using that instead to bring some light in there and brighten up the area. It doesn't make as much sense because obviously there aren't any windows up there, so it doesn't make sense to have it that bright. But if you don't like how dark it is with another kind of support wall, you can always use that fence, which will work as well. So after that, I'm just going to grab some more rich mahogany wall and place some horizontal supports as well. Now the reason why I place them out here towards the edge is because if you look here, if I don't have any texture here, you can see small bits of gap between the large bamboo and the leaf block. And I'm not a huge fan of that gap. and I like having a little bit of an overhang of the wall outside of these sorts of supports. So I would normally place one here like I did on this side, and then for that gap I just place another in there and fill that out. I probably won't do the same thing here because honestly it kind of looks like a hot dog and a hot dog bun when you do it like that, and I'm just going to keep it shorter like this. But I'll also place a couple right up here as well, one there and on the other side. And I try to place these in line with these horizontal supports that I have going throughout the build. So I also have a support out here. If I wanted to, I could place a couple out there. It doesn't look terrible, and I'll probably just leave it like that for this. But yeah, try to keep that in mind if you're going to be placing the supports sticking out of the sides of the building, that you can visualize where that line's going to be through the entire bit, so it makes sense that it's actually popping out from the ends. At this point, I'm going to start placing down some windows in the background to not only bring in some natural light, but also just add more variety to the background walls. Now I'm going to try out using some bamboo fence like this, and honestly, it's probably a little too rugged for my tastes, and I thought it might be, but I thought I'd try it out anyway. I do recommend that you try various things out. There are a ton of fences that would work in this fashion and look fantastic. So in this case, I'm going to be using fences, and I'll probably just stick with ebonwood fence for this particular one right here. And I'm just going to lay out the windows in a way that I think looks good. So there's going to be one window here. It's kind of wonky right now because I decided I actually don't want it to be that tall. And then maybe one window up here or down here. I don't think I want to do both. Always, whenever you're doing builds like this, you should just experiment around, see what suits you, what you enjoy doing. So now that I have the windows here, I try to give them somewhat of a frame. And that's really easily accomplished by using walls in a smart way. You don't always have to do this. You could always do platforms or even something fancy like tables on top of platforms to add frames to the windows. And you don't even necessarily need to do that. It's just something that I think is a nice touch. Now, normally I might do something like a frame on all of the sides of the window like this, but I don't like how close this large bamboo would be to those support beams, so I'm actually going to forego a side frame on this particular window right here and just do a top one with some brown paint and some rich mahogany wall. And I'm going to go all the way and connect it to the supports as well, but not go beyond that, and I'll do that for both of the windows. And that pretty much completes the interior walls for this. So up next, I can just place some doors, and I'm going to go with the very nice looking dungeon door. I just love the way that this door looks. There are a ton of good looking ones, but for medieval builds, this is probably my go-to. Now, in the golf course, and as you can see here, we have a section for a door here. The reason I did that in the golf course is because I needed to make it a town for the pylon so you could teleport. I don't need that for this NPC house, since it's just going to house the golfer. So I'm actually going to open this room up a little bit to make one larger room, and this frees up this wall for decorations if I want to use it for that as well. At this point, I wanted to add something that really makes this feel like a golf shop more than anything else, and I figured the best way to do that was by creating a miniature golf course right outside. I decided to create only one hole, as the intention wasn't to make another full-sized golf course, but rather to add a bit of decoration to the golfer's house, and maybe give you some inspiration for making miniature golf courses of your own. For the design, I wanted to go with a small lighthouse on top of a cliff over a pool of water. Sandstone with gray paint makes up the rocky segments of the build, and I use gray painted sand to blend the sandstone and dirt together. Since I was making a miniature lighthouse, I wanted the bridge going over the water to also feel miniature. To accomplish this feeling, I used only bamboo platforms and bamboo fence painted brown. The thin texture of the fence and the platforms make this bridge feel much smaller than had I used blocks and other kinds of walls to make a bridge in the same amount of space. For the lighthouse, I wanted to go with a traditional spiral paint design that you often see on them. I could have accomplished this by using sloped blocks and walls to make a corkscrew pattern, but that wouldn't feel as miniature if I had done that. Instead, I used red candy cane block, which naturally has that spiral pattern within it, and it has the lines much closer together than I could accomplish with sloped blocks, adding to the feeling of this truly being a miniature lighthouse. The building is lit using living fire blocks. Outside of the lighthouse, I added a tiny patch of grass and placed a sakura sapling on top of it. Once again, I want to add details to this that make it feel truly miniature, and this sapling accomplishes that perfectly. It looks like a tiny tree when used in this fashion, and since the patch of grass is so small, it would never grow into a full-size tree. Lastly, I placed the golf cup and I mow the grass to give it that mini golf feeling. And here we have a miniature golf course, just one hole, something super simplistic that I just wanted to give people inspiration for if they wanted to make a miniature golf course of their own. It's much smaller in scale than what we did with Terraria, and it's much more simplistic, but I do feel that it fits the Putt-Putt theme very well, and it's actually completely functional. It's not too difficult to get a hole-in-one in this particular one either, but I do think it looks great and it's a lot of fun. The only thing that's left to do here is to work on decorating the actual house to make it look like a golf shop. And to do that, I have a ton of different items in here. So I'm going to do things like place an item frame on the outside with a golf ball in it to indicate that this is a golf shop. And also like place a bar with a bar stool next to it for the counter where the golfer will be selling stuff. And to indicate that, I'm going to place 2 gold coins right on top. Another thing that I want to do is inspired by something that I saw from Relogic. Ghost Star had built a golf shop of her own, and inside of it, she had bars with glass on top of it, kind of like this, that looked like display cases, and I was really interested in how that looked. So she basically just stuck a bar down and put some glass platforms on top of it and hammered them down, and bam, display case. Now that looks fantastic, and I want to use something like that in this build, though I want it to be a little bit lower down to the ground so you could look like you're actually looking down into it. And so to do that, I've got these granite workbenches, because the workbenches are nice and low, and the granite ones actually look like they have an entirely solid bottom to them, so it looks like they could be housing an item inside. And then I'll do the same sort of thing where I put the glass platforms on top, hammer it a few times, and then we have a display case. So thank you Ghost Star for the inspiration for that, I really do love it. So what I'm going to be doing is experimenting around, figuring out everything that I want to do with decorating this build, and then we'll jump to the final version. Here we have the finished golf shop themed house for the golfer NPC. I placed a couple of the new chests, some trophies and mannequins with golf apparel, as well as some golf balls and a club in some item frames, and I feel everything ties together, especially with the miniature golf course right outside. And that wraps up this NPC build video. Don't forget that I still have merch available for the next 5 days. There will be a link to that in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out. And if you're already subscribed and you haven't done so already, press the bell icon to get notified as soon as I upload. And leave a comment letting me know what you would like to see me build for the next NPC house, which will be for the zoologist. I'll catch you all later with a brand new build video. Until then, happy building!